Yo, yo, yo. What's going
What's
on,
up,
Tom?
man?
How are you?
Not much, man. It feels like it's the week of cancellations. I got stood up for a podcast on my own.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
I was sitting in the waiting room on Zoom, and I'm like, it's 20 after. I think I should go.
Did they reach out and
We did. It's one of those things, like trying to do the podcast circuit. We're all trying to figure out how to do this the best way, and the smaller operations that, this guy's juggling his own practice and, this all by himself. And, he's taking care of his family. And, I'm cutting them some leniency. We're going to reschedule it. But,
sure.
Yeah, man, it's a bummer when you have something lined up and you're sitting there going like, now I'm just staring at a fucking screen for no reason.
Yeah. And that's unbelievably frustrating for sure. And I get that in meetings all the time.
Yeah.
Like I probably have, I don't know, 3-4 meetings a week that somebody just doesn't show up for.
Yeah.
And it has happened to me as well. So like I try to be empathetic, but it's not happened to me a whole lot.
Well, it's so funny because like one of my like long-term lover to death patients, she's crazy busy. And she comes in and she goes, so sorry, I double book. I got to be on this call. And, so she's in the treatment room and they say, hey, could you turn on your camera for a second? Literally, she's got like 2 needles in her head.
Oh, man.
And like the room's dim. And then they're like, where are you? She's like, I'm actually in acupuncture.
That's funny. So, I talked to a woman today and I think we're going to get her on the show, but.
Oh, is this the Yoga Nidra person?
No, she's actually writing my Yoga Nidra now.
Oh, okay.
And so I'm going to play with it for 30 days, like I told her. And then we're going to have her on the show too. And
sounds good.
But this woman I talked to today is about like chasing joy. Right. And she does it through the lens of corporate, like training, like maybe business coachy, but basically what her shtick is that when you take what gave you joy and you pursue that almost against all odds, right? Like you're all in on it. She said people usually make more money, they're happier, their lives don't feel chaotic. Or at least they feel differently chaotic, I should think would probably be right. But anyway, she's got a whole thing on it. And it's super interesting because, I think like it is that shift in mindset that can change so much. So when I look at somebody like your patient, and I'm maybe not as that guilty of this, but I'm certainly guilty in my own ways. Well, I'll try to double, triple stack things up, right? Like I'll try to.
Yeah, for efficiency's sake.
Yeah, for efficiency's sake. Like, I've been trying to get like well north of 10,000 steps every day. Like I just, I'm kind of on a roll right now and I'm like, you know what, let's just get it done. So now it's because I committed to being 10,000 steps. What ends up happening is I'm usually like 14 to 16,000 steps because now it's like become like a piece of my day I'm unwilling to trade, right? And what downstream consequences does that have? But the thing about that is now I'm doing it regularly enough where I'm starting to cheat a little bit by saying, okay, well, while I'm out here, why don't I try to do a couple emails or return a few Slacks? And now I'm like double dipping, right? And like, I think it makes my walks less intentional. Which means like one of the main benefits of it, which is focusing my energy in my head, is no longer firing on all cylinders because I'm trying to do something else that's pulling it in the exact opposite direction, right?
Yeah,
and so,
you're onto something, and I'm gonna bring up my mentor here. Like he used to say, like he was huge into weight training, huge into martial arts, and he's like, look. You don't put on the headphones and listen to an audiobook. You don't put on, you don't blast music so you can't even think. He's like, you're there to do this one specific thing, right? And the mindfulness that you're trying to gain, you lose when you're now splitting your intention and attention,
Yeah. Oh no. And it's funny. There was my daughter and I and my wife just finished this show called The Renegade Nell, and it was this, piratey kind of marauder, it's a fun little thing. And the guy had a really great line, and I just can't remember the exact words, but it was something along the lines of like, to blame one's circumstance on external factors or society at large is abdication of will.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what an pretty way of saying that, because like that's exactly right. Like by basically like out and I put in that same bucket outsourcing your attention to things like your iPod or your iPhone or whatever the fuck your device is, right? The most X sounding thing ever. Your iPod, guys. Get your
your mini disc player.
Yeah, exactly. Right. My Zune. Put it on your Zune. Yeah.
No, Zune's going to be an Apple killer. Totally.
Yeah, remember that? Yeah, Zune's going to kill Apple. Yeah, that was funny. But yeah, I mean, I don't do anything. Like when I'm doing Ironman marathons, 5Ks, it does not matter. The distance, the time, the modality, nothing. I am 1000% in that game and in that game only. I'm not on a phone. I'm not on a, like I have notifications to my watch turned off. My phone's in my backpack. Like it is not touched. It's like basically like a 911 device if I needed it. Like, you know, like there's no distractions. And almost everybody I know thinks I'm fucking insane because they're all like out there. And my buddy's like, he's like, well, what I did is I took one headphone and I cut the other one off, so it's basically just like a mono headphone, and then now it's like you just put in one AirPod. But I was like, no, man, no. If my attention is not fully focused on that means I can't sense the internal subtleties of what's happening during that activity, right? Your weight's off a little bit, you don't want to compensate, or you do want to compensate, you almost trip. You know, there's that like nanosecond between tripping and actually falling. Yeah. Like sometimes where if you've got your shit together, you could actually arrest that fall and like catch out of it.
Recover. Yeah.
Right. If you don't have your wits about you, that shit happens in split seconds. I don't have time.
And you're down.
Yeah. I don't have fucking time for that shit in my life, man. But yeah, I don't know. It's just an interesting thought. So when I hear people like your client or like myself, when I get into that, it's like, we really do need to remind ourselves that doing these activities, there are certain things you can do double of. You can take a shit and check your email at the same time. Like that is a possibility.
Yeah.
Because neither really need your full attention, right? Like
absolutely not. Like
right.
You can clear your email box and there might be like one or two that like, I got to respond to this.
But I'll do that when I'm not shitting, right? I'll do that at some other point in the future. But right now I can shit and clear out spam and whatnot, right? And so, but like if you're doing anything else, like, I don't think that that's true. And in fact, I think that there's way more to talk about it being objectively incorrect.
Yeah.
But yeah, so speaking of tech, man, I I know we are only 8 minutes in and it's already happening. I'm already saying the AI word, but
the AI word.
This fucking
we got to get the buzzer.
Yeah, this fucking thing won't stop being interesting in the news. Like I would stop talking about it if it would stop being the fucking coolest thing I've ever seen. You know what I'm saying?
God, look, when it's brought up in acupuncture circles, there's almost like this, like, oh God, that's not gonna. We don't need that. And I'm like, you guys are dead. You're already dead.
Dinosaur.
You're already dead. You're dead.
Yeah. I mean, it's so what I'm specifically, did you saw that article on the CRISPR thing, right?
Yeah. You're crazy.
So lay the groundwork for that real quick. They basically trained up a microbe GPT, basically like, you know, on the genetics of a microbe, way simpler than humans, obviously. And they basically said, design us, what was it? New protein arrangements and new, you know, like different, just various differences that made that system better. And when they went and tested it, they're like, wait, this actually might be more efficient than nature. Like this actually has like, and of course it's way early, right? Like this is step 1 of a million, right? But I used to say that, but now I don't know if I believe that anymore because like this might have just been a few steps out of a longer path, but it's a giant step towards what it's aiming to do. Like, this straight up is like, I mean, there's really no end to what that is, right? I mean,
well, even when we talk about gene therapy, imagine you having something in you that, like, all right, look, we can't switch off that gene, we don't splice it out, but what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that your body has that right compound in it, that right protein chain or that right enzyme, and here's your pump. It'll look like a little diabetes pump, and it'll just kick that stuff off as you need it.
Sure. Yeah, and then, like, eventually. And look, it's hard to, like, the biggest problem I think I have when I talk about this stuff or even think about it is that, like, my brain doesn't have time scale when it comes to where I think this goes, right?
Yeah.
So when I'm telling the story in my head of what I think this is going to do, it could happen tomorrow or it could happen in the next 100 years. Like,
but that, I don't think you can with something as exponentially powerful as this. How do you have a time scale?
No, you're right. But, like, I mean, that's the funny part, though. Like, right. Like, we agree that it's inevitable, right? Like, we basically know that it's 100% going to happen.
Yeah.
They also said it was 100% that we were going to be in flying cars by now. Like, that was also.
Yeah. I mean, the Jetsons. I think the Jetsons took place in 2010 or something.
The Jetsons? No, that was like the 80s. Like the
not the cartoon.
Oh yeah. I'm like
the future they were talking about was early 2000s.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, it doesn't, like, we got a lot of things wrong, but I think the funny part about back then is that we got it wrong because it was science fiction.
Mm-hmm.
But it was stories. Like, they were amusing stories that didn't really need foundation in reality. They were just stories. Now, the science fiction that we're writing isn't based on just a cute story. It's like, well, wait a minute. If 1 + 1 = 2, then 2 + 2 is 4. Okay. Like, this is, like, it's like
exponential. Yeah.
But you're like, oh, but this is actually happening. It's not a story. It's a.
I think we're talking about this literacy thing, right? Like, back in the day, every superhero, like, they got bit by a radioactive thing, or they got gamma rays, or they stepped in this ooze, or and it's like, now we'd be like, no, that's how you get cancer.
Right.
This is how you get superpowers. Use AI, become the smartest person in the world. It's
right.
like, use AI, build this technology,
Yeah, and like, so we don't have anything right now, right? Like, I mean, we barely have AI. It's in its primordial stages.
It's baby steps right now, yeah.
And it's not going to be ready for game time for a minute. I mean, but I kind of think I really do mean that. I think it's like a minute, right? Like, I mean,
it gets exponentially better as it runs.
Right. And we're already seeing how much different it is. Like, when we started diving into AI stuff, about a year ago, just to see what's possible. And then when we really started diving in about 6 months ago.
Yeah.
You wouldn't even, if you woke up you wouldn't even recognize now from then. Like, it's so
crazy,
right? Like,
it's crazy.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, so these guys, and I'm not sure if they were, but my guess is these are the first guys that trained up a proper model on genomic data.
Yeah.
And so if they're the first, there's going to be a second and probably a 202nd, right? Like, there's that,
and it's gonna, and the time frame in between each of them, somebody's gonna go, oh, that's a great idea. Let me see what I can do.
Right, tomorrow. Because I mean, already, ChatGPT put out that store where you can create your own GPT and put it in their thing. It makes it public by default.
Yeah,
there's gabillions of them now. Like.
Well,
gabillions. I mean, there's just so many.
Adopters had to look at it and go, "Oh my God, this is blowing my mind. Let me see if I can."
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, like, case in point, I think I might have mentioned to you that, like, I had to write an ebook for the office, just, free little giveaway, sign up for our email, like the thing that's on 1,000 other websites. I said, let me go into Claude, Claude 3,
Sure.
and just say, hey man, I want to write a little, book on stress. Let's talk about 3 different modalities that people can do at home. Okay, cool. Here's what I recommend we do. All right. Could you do that for me? Oh yeah, sure. Here's a 15-page, okay. We really need photos for this. All right. Well, I can't do photos, but here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell you where you can get royalty-free photos, and I'm going to insert them in the text where they're supposed to go.
Oh yeah.
All right. So now it's a 20-page book, and I'm like, God damn it, I wish I could format this. No sooner do I speak, I go onto Instagram. Your first ad is like, hey, you trying to write a book? here's Wordsmith AI, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And I'm like, I don't really want to spend $1,000 on an AI. Oh, here's one for $27.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, I'm listening to you. So I clicked buy. I can't wait to actually kick the tires on it. I just did it this morning.
And here's the thing: that could be the worst tool ever made, but it costs $27.
$27, and if I get like one little snippet out of it, and it saves me what, a couple of hours doing something,
it's well worth $27.
Exponentially better, yeah.
Yeah.
I
so
keep
like
saying exponentially.
But see, that's my point. Like, that's just what we're doing in mile 1 of the marathon, not half mile in the marathon, right?
And we're not talking like this is like me making a little snack at home, right? This isn't what's happening at a corporate scale either,
Yeah. And so like right now, just to kind of peel this back, I mean, I think what's interesting to understand is how this all puts together, right? Like, these models are great, but they need training. And so what training is like, just like medical school, right? Like, like, hey, we're going to have a whole chapter on, anesthesiology. We're going to have a section on the circulatory system. We're going to have, and you break it down, and then you say, okay, for the next period of time, we're going to learn everything we know about the circulatory system. It's going to, it's going to have.
Well, but like you're saying, like the next period of time, like it's going to take 4 years. It's like once you have that data, they know it. Like,
well, no, because it doesn't change, right? Like it doesn't. Once we get through this, like, adolescent stage and we get out into the world, like, I think it's going to be, like you said, it's just done, right? Like, once you decode the human genome, like, the human genome is decoded. Like, we have it now. Okay?
You don't have to do it again.
You don't have to do it again. Like, so once we lay out all the pieces parts, and here's where I think my view over AI is like kind of rapidly changing, is like, as I understand more and more about the applications of it, the more I realize that this is going to absolutely wipe out tons of jobs, but it's going to create a ton more, but just very, very different. Like, what we think of as work is radically going to be different, right? Like, because this isn't going to be work like, oh, I got to go punch a time clock and crank out like TPS reports. What was that? Office Space, like
Office Space, great movie.
Yeah. Like, we're not cranking out TPS reports anymore, because there's like an AI for every little stupid menial task that we have. And there's going to be a TPS report, AI, which is never actually going to have to make a report, by the way, because it's going to be in a neural network with all the other assistants. And it's going to report the data directly. And the humans don't even have to know it's happening. Like, all of the parts get done. So what else can you do? Well, you could figure out cool ways to stitch this all together. And I think eventually that's outsourceable to a computer too.
I mean, isn't that even the ChatGPT to CRISPR thing? That's stitching those technologies together.
It is. And I think what's interesting, though, is it had to train it on all that data first, right? Which is what I wanted to kind of get into a little bit with this, because like, what's fascinating is we don't have this. So like, it's easy to sit on a show like this or in a conversation like this and say, oh man, AI is going to take over the world. It's going to be great. We're going to do this and this and that. Yeah, that is all really great. But you have to understand, none of that base data is done. The only thing we have is it understands languages, right? Like you want to translate this conversation to Greek, I can have that done within 30 seconds of the show being over.
And it's not Google Translate. It's native. It has intonation. It has idioms. It will translate it as a native speaker.
And like, that's way different than Siri, right? Like, you know, like that's, you know, and so that's where we're at. And that's really impressive. Like, I'm not taking away from that. That's awesome. But training a GPT on the human genome and the infinite complexity therein, whole different ball of wax, that shit's going to take a minute, right? Like, you know, like, but once it's done, man, shit is going to get loose. Like, I mean, it's like so exciting that like, I don't even know what to say. And they're like, with this CRISPR thing, like even just working on these, like, you know, nothing, you know, they're basically saying it is entirely possible now that we are writing this better than fucking nature did.
Yeah.
And by better, you know, there's a whole bunch of qualifiers, obviously, that go in there. Like, you know, is it actually better? But like, they're going to say, as the doctor people, well, yeah, it's better because like, this isn't susceptible to, you know,
whatever they're trying to
whatever they're trying to dial out. But like, did you see that other article on those people with that disease in Ecuador that they were like really small?
You sent that to me?
Yeah. So they basically they found and here actually, you know what? It's funny. I wasn't even gonna. I forgot about that. I wasn't gonna draw that in, but actually that fits perfectly with this. These people have a disease, and it is a disease that basically makes them immune to chronic illness. Like they don't get diabetes. They have they don't get cancer. But it also retards their growth. And so they don't grow past like 4'10". Like they're really, you know.
So do they also look very young? Because that's interesting to me. No. Okay.
No, they look like adults, but you know, they look like dwarfs or whatever the politically correct term is for little person.
I think little person is.
Yes. It's called Laron syndrome. I just looked it up again. And Laron syndrome, Laron, it's interesting because it makes their bodies like hyper insulin sensitive, and so they just don't get diabetes. Like period. Like,
well, but I, you know, with all like the research on these Ozempics and, you know, metformin, I'm wondering do they live longer too?
No, actually. So this is funny. No. Well, we can get into this too in a minute, but interestingly, they also have a higher propensity for alcohol-related deaths because there's something also in that genome that messes with the risk reward.
With their alcohol metabolism?
Not metabolism. I think the risk reward center, like, what is that?
So they'll overdo it to the point where they kill themselves.
And I might have misread that. I didn't actually, I got halfway through the article and got distracted about something, but, so I didn't finish it, but basically, and that's why I wasn't going to talk about it yet, because I wanted to kind of finish it. But what was interesting about it is that what they said is, and I'm looking for what it is. They know why it does it. Yeah, and I can't see it, and I don't want to waste time on it. Low levels of IGF-1. That's what it was, right?
Yeah. Well, you know, because the first thing I saw is they're treating kids with it with a biosynthetic.
So what they're curious about is, could you dial up the IGF-1 while they're in their childhood growing years to allow the growth to happen? Because I guess a lowered IGF-1 basically is the reason they're short, right? Like their bodies can't grow because the IGF-1 turns off the growth. That particular growth hormone is responsible for the growth in adolescence, right? So what their thought is like, could we dial up the IGF-1 until they reach their normal height and then dial it off? They said it was similar to like taking statins temporarily to lower cholesterol. And I was like,
I gotcha.
But here's what I'm saying. Like, you take Laron syndrome, right? And you said that's like a great example, right? So now we've got the fast forward a little bit, right? Time scale be damned, right? we now know that IGF-1, low levels of IGF-1 are significantly correlate to zero cancer, right? So you're like, all right, well, let's figure out how to cure all cancer, which we know we can't do because they're all different. We do know that these people don't seem to get cancer, period. Like they live in the same world we live in. You know, there's nothing different there. It's not like they're living on another planet, right? They're here. They're not in the middle of the fucking rainforest. They're not like in a
they're
desert.
not an isolated
Yeah, they're
tribe.
not. No, they're not. They're nothing. They're just everyday people. You know, living in poorer areas, rural areas, oftentimes. But let's say we know that, so great. We throw that into our little at-home CRISPR that I've pricked my finger and it's decoded my genome, and it's like, all right, well, what do you want to do today, Matt? Do you want to dial out some cancer? Sure, let's do that. You ever seen the Family Guy with the multiverse? And one of them, Quagmire, comes out and his watch beeps and he looks down and he goes, oh shit, I got AIDS again. It's time to take my daytime sniffling and AIDS pill. And he pops like a NyQuil in the future and he's like, and the watch dings. He's like, oh, it's gone. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of it, right? Like you've got your own little fucking happen. And it's funny because it's, you think it's like nuts, but these stories are coming out now like weekly, right? Like it's challenging because you're like, God, I mean, you really just, and then from like the wearable side, right? We're working, we got Dr. Dave in the mix now, and Dr. Dave is like balls deep in like evaluating data from these cool AI wearables, or aggregating all of your current wearables that you have into a data stream that can be synthesized by AI. You know what I mean? Like that is, and like that's the dream, right? Like where you're like, hey, I don't want to, go to a doctor for something that's just an optimization thing. Like, oh, Matt, you need to take more choline.
It'll all be coming in the way you want it to. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I got to take more, whatever. Like, I mean, and that could change month to month, right? Like, let's say it's super hot out and I'm like dialing out of this or dialing up on that. Like, I mean, you could have hey, Matt, we're going to go ahead and put an Amazon order in for your choline, manganese. Yeah. Like, here's what you need for this month. Like it just, I don't know. How far off are we from that? Like hardly.
I mean, it's funny because you're kind of saying a bunch of technologies that are already kind of there. I mean, I remember Amazon. They're like, look, we'll give you these buttons you can stick around your house. You put one by the washing machine and you need more laundry detergent. You press this button, it goes into your cart. So now, like, imagine, like, it's like the washing machine would know that it needs more laundry detergent.
Sure.
We're just taking that one step further to saying, like, your body
would
send an alert to Amazon.
Sure. But like you're right though, that's my point. Like we're at a spot now where we're not inventing new tech, right? Like, and that's what I'm saying. Like right now, what stops us from having like a thing that automatically adds vitamins from my body to Amazon? Nothing. We've got the Amazon thing. We got to dust the edges off of this whole like genome thing. But like you said,
and especially with Amazon, like you can go on now and get like certain routine medical things done, right? They have their own little pharmacy. They have their own little, Zoom doctor, if you will. And I mean, you're just removing the Zoom doctor in this case. And even if it was simple stuff like, hey, today, Matt, here's your macros for the day.
Sure.
And then you could have the automation in the house where it's like, no, you're getting this much grain, you're getting this much meat, you're getting this much,
Sure. Yeah. And like, that's the thing. Like, I mean, I think we're just in such an interesting spot that we're now not having to like, before you'd have to invent a whole bunch of tools, right? Like you'd have to say, okay, well, I need a tool to measure this, and I need a, I don't know, like a communication thing. And how are we going to solve that problem? We got to get this device to talk to that device. like every minute that goes by, we stop that shit. Like it doesn't happen anymore, right? Like
because,
it's not
because like once you have the AI in the center, you just plug everything into that, and here's what needs to happen.
No, that's my point. Is like you're sort of like, and so everyone's like, oh, okay, well, what happens now when you have like innovation doesn't get held up by much of anything now, right? Like, and that's where this kind of goes, right? Like now I don't have to worry about I could just innovate one little tiny thing and it's just going to actually go and do it for me.
Yeah.
Right? Like I'm not going to have to actually do anything proactive
because
it's just going to do it.
The idea or the need for something.
Well, like you said about your ebook, right? Like it's like, okay, well, I saw I'm auditioning like still like, anywhere between, 10 and 20 like AI tools every day. Like I get them all sent to me and stuff. And it's interesting because like there's a bunch of fun stuff coming out. But right now it's still fun stuff. Like there's very little.
I almost feel like some of this fun stuff is a little proof of concept, like, oh, I can do this.
Oh, it's all proof of concept.
It's not, it may be a little toy now, but there's like, there's a place people want to go with it, and it's that first step into it. Let me play with the, the microbe before we move on to lab rats and then, monkeys and then humans, it's not, these jumps are going to happen very quickly,
and they're going to happen very quickly, and it's going to be like we like I said, we're just going to keep getting more efficient more quickly, right? And that is where I think it's exciting. But what I think is cool is like, and I think there's never been a time where it's been more important to be dialed into the research about what's going on right now, because right now the innovation part is going to be when somebody read this article on training a GPT on a genome, somebody else was like, okay, well, they're working on genomics. What if I can do this for just cardio, like all cardiac stuff? I'm just going to dive in on there. Now, the first person that does that, now you've got a cardiac GPT that can be licensed as a SaaS product. And that's what people are doing right now. A lot of people are like racing to get that done because why wouldn't you, right? Like, I mean, if you can,
you basically
you can spend a couple million bucks building your own, or you could license this one for $25 a month or $1,000 a month, or, $10,000.
Like directly to clinics or directly to the public, and that's insane.
Well, that's my point. Like it's like, and we don't have to think too hard about it because it's happening. We don't have to invent all the different pieces parts. And so I don't know what's going to be interesting is when it's at what I think is still remains interesting. Like the guy, Dr. Dave, we're going to have, right? Mm-hmm. Dr. Dave is not an AI guy, right? Like he's a wellness guy. He's a fitness guy. He's a chiropractor. He's those are the things Dave is. But Dave's tool set is going to be wider by the minute, because how long is it until everybody, what that acupuncture thing I read, by the way, is awesome. Like, but that's why I think you called them dead, because you're like, guys, like, I mean,
look, when you see something happening, your choice is to at least take a look at it, right? Like, at least take a look at it before you say, no, we don't need that, right? But like my field, God, some of them are like, oh, I still take paper notes. I like to do it the old way. I like to have the whole written appointment book. And I'm like, why the fuck do I want an appointment book on my desk?
Makes no sense.
I can run my entire office off of my cell phone if I really wanted to. Why would I not lean into AI? Why would I not lean? Like, I'm playing with an AI note-taking thing, man. And the only weird thing is I'm recording in the treatment room. That's a little weird to me. But we have a conversation. It filters out the banter. It puts the sections of the soap note together. I've used it with, like, somebody comes in with their partner, and it will say, okay, this one's Tom. That's voice is Tom. That's the patient. that's a third party. Like it'll know which one's the one that's
fantastic. But see, that's exactly right though. Like, right. So
why
now
would I ever write a note again? Right.
Right. And here's the thing, you know, what's really like from a liability standpoint, that absolutely definitively knows who's who. You blank out because you're like, just had a long day and you accidentally attribute something to the wrong person.
Yeah.
And it goes pear shaped. Then, you know,
well, you know, what's funny to me is even with note taking, right? So I had this one patient that came in, right? And first time treating him, oh my God, you know, I got this hip pain all on my right side. So, you know, in my notes, I've got, you know, R with the circle around it, which is right, shorthand, all up and down, all my subjective, objective parts, right? Write the, you know, do the treatment. He leaves. He comes back next week, and I'm pressing on the right side. He goes, no, it's the other side. And I'm like, what the like? No, your whole chart says right side, and sure, I probably got twisted around, right? So I treat the left side, you know, more than I normally would. We always do some things to kind of keep everybody balanced, but then I come back in for the next stage, and he goes, no, you were right. It was the right side.
Yeah.
And I was like, Jesus, like here I am having a meltdown. If I have AI listening, it's that mistake isn't made, right? You know?
No, because it's absolutely definitive. Now, I will say here's where it gets scary though. There was an article on China's brain implants, like the Musk style stuff.
Yeah.
Which was what's the right way to put this? Terrifying, I think, is the right way to put it.
I still think the brain implant is the one I'm not the first, you know, 1,000 people to do that one. Let's say that.
No, for sure. But China came out and apparently they're not pulling punches on this one. Like they're just coming right out and saying it. We are doing research to put implants in everybody for they say cognitive enhancement. Now, if that doesn't sound like the most terrifying thing you've ever heard, I don't think you're paying attention.
I feel like anytime it's everybody.
Oh, yeah.
and it's the government, I'd be worried. Now, I would be equally worried if it was the U.S. government and people can fucking.
No, I'm not. This is not a China-U.S. thing. This is like
no. This is like that is a scary, like, where's your choice in that? But I also feel like that is further away than AI telling us how to do it without killing people.
I hear you on that one, but listen, I mean. Where am I? So here's what I was trying to clarify here. That thing with China is not going to happen tomorrow.
No, definitely not.
But their sort of mission statement, and I honestly can't believe that they said this like with a straight face. Cause I mean, it's almost got to be a fucking joke. They were like, and I'm paraphrasing, but they're like, the objectives of this should only basically make people make better decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't clarify what the fuck that meant, but they make better decisions.
Yeah.
But shouldn't get in the way of things like imagination. I'm sorry, not imagination. Autonomy. Like, you know, like it shouldn't get in the way of you
have free
being
will.
you.
Yeah.
And you should be aware of yourself. And I was like, oh, how kind of you to allow me to remain conscious of myself. Like, yeah. I mean, like, it's so, how very pleasant of you for that. I thank you. I mean,
that still feels a little too sci-fi for me right now. You know, I think it just, I mean, I could see them pulling it off. I will say, by and large, their technology is better than ours. And even in, like, you know, electronic devices, their cell phones are better.
So apparently, though, that's one of the reasons this article made news headlines. Is this is the first time they've lagged behind a lot of the world in the brain implant area, and U.S. has been kind of crushing it in that space. And China's basically like threw the gloves off. They're like, tell you what, we're going to fucking.
we literally have 500 million scientists. They're all going to be working on this right now.
Yeah. Like we're coming after you guys. But in a not so unpredictable format, they're like, oh, and by the way, it's not because we want to turn our whole country into robots that we could turn on and off at will. No,
the Borg.
It's definitely not that. Don't look here. like, I mean, but here's the thing, like that's the problem with these technologies, right? Like when you get genomic amazingness, you also get dictatorial fucking madness at the same time. Like it's like you kind of, and that's and it's a hard conversation to have because when I have like, my mother-in-law or my parents that are like, oh, fucking AI scares the bejesus out of me. I'm like, when we start peeling that back, it's like, yeah, it kind of should scare you. That makes sense. Because like you don't have the tools to fucking understand what's happening here. Like you're not dumb.
You didn't have advanced technology like this in your hand for that long of your life. You had it,
Yeah, I mean, you were retiring when cell phones came out.
Yeah.
Maybe not retiring, but getting close. Like you were in the second half of your career for sure when cell phones came out, right? Like so yeah. But I mean, and we've talked about this a bunch of times, but like if you have what we haven't talked about is like if you have a country that's fucking hooked up to this thing. What was that? The Kingsmen? Didn't they do a take on this where like they had the cell phones and what's his name was basically going to blow up all their heads? Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah, I think. Oh God, I don't even think I've seen all of the Kingsmen.
Such a corny movie, but a good word.
I think that may be what did it. I'm like, oh God, guys, you got so many talented actors in this.
No, it's awesome. It's like James Bond meets Jackie Chan meets fucking.
Yeah, I know, but it's like. What's that one with the aliens where like everybody's in it? Mars Attacks.
Oh yeah.
You're like, they were like, look, we're just going to have fun with this. We know it's going to be fucking horrible.
Plenty of reasons to make fun of this movie.
Everybody's doing it.
Yeah. Totally. No, I think the guests we have lined up coming up, which I mean, we're on a tear.
Dude, I'm so impressed with us because we've gotten some like heavy.
Oh no! Yeah, we can't even tell
heavy hitters now.
We can't even tell everybody everything yet. I want that to be a surprise. But like but yeah, I mean, but here's the thing: every single one of those people is operating in this world, and that's what's awesome about it because the people we get to talk to here, they're not Skynet bound, right? They're not like enslave my whole population bound. They're like free
your entire life.
Yeah, like, and so it is, I know it's both, like it's happy and sad, but like, this article with the CRISPR thing was like, I think you and I both reacted the same. We're like, fuck, it's here. It's like,
I believe that might've been the text that I sent back. It was like, fuck, it's here.
It's here, man. And like somebody brought it up today. I was talking with a client and they're like, this isn't Terminator, this is Gattaca. And I was like, great fucking reference, by the way, where basically all the babies born are designed. Like you're like, well, I really was looking for something with blue eyes. Like, can we maybe bring that in? Oh, honey, you know how I feel about brown eyes. Yeah, I know, but I'll trade you biceps for, and so, that's totally right. And then you've got these two classes of people, like naturals or whatever they called them then, and everybody else, right? And so I think we have the same thing sort of happening here in the sense that like there's going to be, again, we bring it back to the doom and gloom of the checkbook, but if you've got enough cash, you very well could live a lot longer.
Live forever, change how you look. God, it's... the more I'm thinking about this CRISPR thing, I'm like, wow, they could actually engineer anti-cancer proteins. They could.
Well, that show, The Expanse, he had a fucking diabetic pack that was his anti-tumor cancers medicine. Yeah. It just synthesized it on the fly.
You know what, Matt? We to circle this back to the people with that Larson's disease. I was like, the second you mentioned it, I was down the fucking hole. And I mentioned, it kind of looks like they're producing this like almost like dietary mimetic, which we've talked about on the show,
Sure.
or fasting mimetic. And sure enough, Business Insider posted like, hey, this may unlock the key to longevity, this fasting mimetic gene that this particular group has. And I was like,
How long till GNC's got that in a fucking capsule?
Well, and then I went for like, I'm
Thorne
like, okay,
already has it. It's $200 a month.
It's a GF
subscribe and save
IGF-1 supplement, right? I mean, that is the peptide, and immediately I'm looking for like, can I inject it? And there's 20 places. Amazon has 10 brands of it,
right? Because now, and here's the thing that sucks about it. So this is the other side of that coin, though. Now everybody takes the science they barely understand. The people who did it barely understand it. I mean, if you read that article closely, that what they're saying in no uncertain terms is we don't fucking know what this can do, but we do know that this is just scratching the surface of what it can do. Like we're aware at least of that, right? Like we know that much. But then you get a bunch of marketers that are like, oh, they'll make you live forever.
Run with it. Yeah.
Here's your IGF fucking thing. And I'm like, oh man, that kind of does suck though. Cause that shit's not real. And then it gets people, unhealthily addicted to like, something that probably won't work. Hey, minimum effective dose of that is a gram, and the Amazon supplements like 0.025 grams. You're like, great.
Oh, so, is that actually right?
But that's how those things happen. Usually roll. Yeah,
that's what'll happen. Or there'll be multiple forms of it, and they'll be like, no, we're going to give you the cheaper form that doesn't actually.
It wasn't tested in the study, which we don't know if it actually does work or not. But I was actually a bit of good news in study land. I actually have had 2 different conversations with 2 different people who both are in research. And both of them said that they are, and their colleagues are increasingly like aware that these, clinical trials are not going to be plausible for a lot of these things, right? Like the technology is moving way too fast to support that structure. So people are either going to take it elsewhere and then do it illegally and bring it back, or
absolutely,
or the rules have got to change, right? Like at some point, the rules are going to have to like adapt to the new reality, right? Like I don't think you can just go injecting people with any random thing you printed up. But I
don't know, man. I'm looking at this IGF-1 and I'm pretty sure I'm going to start injecting it.
Yeah. But you can do that. But like what I'm saying though is like in a few years from now, like who's to say that you don't have like an AI model that says what the efficacy rate of that drug is based on everything, and then knows the cohort that's going to die from it, right? Like,
yeah,
hey, if you've got these 2 genes in unison in this, and you take this, you're going to 100% die. Like we know that. Like just don't take this. Like just, and that's going to be commonplace, right? Like, hey, I have, there'll be cute names for it and everything. I have the 1, 2, 3 Cinderella fucking whatever, like, oh no, you can't take these drugs. Here's the ones you have to take. Anyway, what are you getting up to these days, man?
Man, did I tell you this? I'm going to be in somebody else's book.
Nice.
So I did a podcast, which I think will be out in June, with a relatively well-known person. And she's like, hey, I love this podcast. Do you, I'm doing this book on wellness and these therapies and natural healing, and would you like to be interviewed for a chapter?
Sure.
I was like, cool. Oh yeah, we're doing that. So I'm super excited for that.
Can she turn around and post a show on her thing of you? Because that would be awesome.
Maybe, who knows? She might repost it by then. I mean, it's gonna be. She's like, give me 4 months to give you a call on the book. So we'll see. If it happens, I'm excited. If it doesn't, it's nice to be asked.
Yeah, it's nice. It was a pleasure being nominated. It's an honor just to
exactly.
be. Exactly. Yeah, that's funny. Well, that's cool.
What are you doing, man?
It's making headway on my little AI projects.
Nice.
I'm pretty excited about the one. So, yeah, just been keeping me busy. I think I'm sort of, weirdly getting out of my lane back into my previous lane where I'm just like, every day I'm, doing a little bit more than I did the day before. And I'm just sort of like kicking the tires on this whole thing. And it's tough because it's like I'm reforming all those patterns that unformed. And so,
yeah. It's a crazy thing. I had my last Saturday in clinic, last Saturday. So now I'm
awesome.
like, I'm walking out of the office today going, oh shit, I won't be here till Tuesday.
Oh man.
It's insanity.
Yeah. Well, hey, onward and upward, right? I mean, that's
hopefully upward, man. You start to, we're both kind of on this path trying to get something going here and with other stuff. And it's like, I need the time, but until you see the paycheck for that, that's always the scary thing. Right?
Yeah. The paycheck is like non-existent. So,
Yeah.
What is going to be interesting though, is the Joy lady. She is very, very, very intriguing to me because,
is she scheduled? We got her locked in.
I don't think we have her locked in on a date yet, but we're agreed. She's in. Like it's just a matter of scheduling at this point.
All right.
But here's the thing: like, I am always curious. You and I are like the worst in the sense that we are like placebo junkies, right? Like, I mean, if you tell us,
I would buy into it. Like, hang one half decent study in front of me. And I'm like, I'm in.
It could be quarter decent. We've done a show on worse, right?
It's done on lab rats. Fine, let's do it.
Yeah. No, we've done worse, right? And so like I'm looking at that and I'm like, okay, well, we have all these joking terms like the universe, I sent a thing out into the universe and it came back, or the universe is, there's a lot of ways to describe it, but like, I especially the older I get, like if you really commit to something, it very rarely doesn't come through. I mean, really commit to it, right?
And also I think I would put limitations to it, right? I don't think anything's possible.
No, I'm not saying like I'm going to, become president, although,
I'd vote for you.
Yeah, I mean, I'd get at least one vote, right? Well, two. I'd vote for myself, but I mean,
you got to vote for yourself.
Yeah, but outside of that, yeah. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, not important. Yeah, anyway.
Yeah, I get
but yeah, it's I'm excited that these projects are kind of going through. I'm not doing any of the health stuff, obviously, with AI, but I, just like everybody else, I'm kind of getting used to what that reality looks like and what are the things we can do. But I will tell you, this universe thing is sort of like comes up the more I have these conversations, because when I say I'm not doing anything in health, but it'd be nice to do it, then I end up meeting this guy who's got health AI tech. And then I meet a doctor who tested his AI tech, who then has this other cool story that's actually even more intriguing than that. And now one or both of those guys will come on the show and talk to you and I about this. And then whoever listens to us hears about it. Like, so it's basically like, okay, well, I'm not necessarily doing it, but I'm also not doing it.
You're right next to it.
Yeah, I'm right next to it. And that's maybe good enough, right? Like, I mean, that could be where
you see it firsthand, and then now you take the step into it, right?
Yeah. So yeah, I think though, being healthy, and I think that's why I'm kind of dusting off my hat here. Being healthy, I've realized realized is like, for me, it sort of shouldn't be a choice, because when I choose not to, and I didn't go out of it for the last couple of years, I just got real lazy about it. It wasn't gone. I mean, I've done 6 marathons, I think, in that amount of time. Like, so it's not like, I'm not functional, like, but it's not, there's not like that commitment isn't there. That regularity is not there. And so in my mind, I feels like
you're not 100% right? In. Yeah.
Right. Because that mind is that placebo mind that I have basically is like, if you exercise all the time, you're going to live forever. And if you miss a day, you're probably going to die next week. That's
all or nothing response right there, man.
Well, that's exactly right. Right. So my brain, I think, feels worse than it necessarily is, but I definitely feel like I need to tighten the ship up.
I don't know, man. Maybe it's the upcoming 5-0 in the next few years, but I'm like, no, dude, you need this nap. No, you're going to lay down for a half an hour. Why? Your ass can't walk right now. Okay?
Yeah. That's hilarious. That is hilarious. That is a bitch, though, to admit that. I do want to say, if there was a biohacking revolution of AI stuff, the first thing I'm asking for is to stop feeling like I'm almost 50.
Like somebody said, oh, wouldn't it be great if you could go back to being 16? And I'm like, no, fuck that. I want this knowledge.
Yeah. Fuck that. I'm not going.
What I would like to do is to be able to, pick something up off the floor without questioning whether or not I'd be able to stand back up.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. But Dave is actually going to be interesting because he's actually doing this whole program right now, couch potato to ultra marathon.
Ooh.
And his race is in October. So we'll talk to him before that.
That's crazy, man.
I think he is scheduled. Actually, I think he's in the next 2 weeks.
I saw. We should have like a Word doc or something.
We do.
We do.
Yeah, we've got a whole thing. Yeah. We got a whole.
We should have.
That's hilarious. Yeah, no, we do, Tom. It's
okay.
Cool. Welcome. Hey, the show's called Irreverent Health.
Okay.
You want to take a note of that?
I thought I was just a guest, man. I was.
All right, man. Hey, listen, always a pleasure. We're excited. We got a tear of guests coming up.
We're gonna have some fun.
It's gonna be awesome. So cool. All right, man. Thanks for playing.
Have a great night.
Be subversive, irreverent.
Health is wealth, but you knew that.
Everybody knows that.
But so is following us on social media at Irreverent Health. And check out our website for more exclusive content at irreverenthealth.com.
Oh, I like this.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Irreverent Health.